Okay, honey, we want to share our lives together on this video and leave these for our family, and we hope you'll be blessed, and we just hope that you'll be encouraged in your walk with the Lord as you see how God worked in our lives. We're going to go back a little bit and talk more about our wedding, though, in Culver City. Can you tell a little bit about it and how God provided.
Oh, it was at the Palms Evangelical United Brethren Church, and a friend made our cake. It was a beautiful three-tiered cake, and and on the top it had statue of a bride and groom.
Yeah,
it was just a gorgeous thing. And another friend that worked at MGM and made clothes for different movie stars made my dress. It was a beautiful satin dress with lace on it that had come from one of Loretta Young's gowns. And it was very, very beautiful.
You know, when you walked down that aisle, you were absolutely, and I told you this before, the most beautiful sight I ever saw in my life. I was almost so overwhelmed I didn't know what to do. It was just unbelievable.
Well, and then what I saw at the end of the aisle was pretty good too.
I'm glad you didn't run away. No, that was wonderful.
A little bit more hair up there.
Yeah, that's right. But I remember I was going to Berkeley, UC Berkeley at the time, and right between finals, I went down there and we got married and went right back up and had finished the rest of my finals. You remember how I had straight A's in Spanish. I got back and took the final and got a C+ average.
But he gave you an A in the course anyhow,
He did.
because he knew you were getting married.
I still remember him. He was really neat. Then we lived in our beautiful home that we talked a little bit about before in the Berkeley Hills, where you were the maid and I was the butler.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, we really had a good time there.
I wore this little black taffeta dress with a white apron on it and a white lacy thing on my head.
Yeah, and every evening when they had dinner, I put on a white dinner jacket and a black bow tie, and I went in and served their meals formally. We thought we were big shots then, didn't we? We were really neat.
Just little shots.
Yeah, that was fun. And then before Galen came on, we moved over to Lynn Avenue in Pleasant Hill, and lived there. Concord, actually.
Yeah.
Galen was born in Concord. And we lived there, and you remember probably one of the most important things in our lives happened when we went to a Navigator conference at Mount Hermon. You remember that?
Oh, yes. That changed our lives.
It did. We went there wanting to hear Navigators talk, and on Saturday night they had a Wycliffe speaker, and we'd never heard one before. I had never.
His name was Don Burns.
Yeah, Don Burns. And he talked about the Bible translation, and that was just the most amazing night of our lives in a way. We walked out of there just so blown away, and we stopped on a little tiny bridge on the way back to our cabin. And you remember what happened?
Oh, I remember that.
What?
That's where it really changed.
Yeah, I said, Bobbie?
And I said, I know what you're going to say.
That's right. It was so amazing. We both knew at that moment that God wanted us in Wycliffe.
Yeah.
That was the most important decision of our lives, and the easiest. There wasn't any worrying, well, is this God's will or is that? He just made it absolutely clear that our lives should be given to the Bible translation.
At the same time, we both realized that.
Isn't that amazing? And from there, just 3 months later, I graduated from Berkeley, my bachelor's, and we took off immediately for Norman, Oklahoma. I didn't even go to my graduation. We went to Norman, Oklahoma, and we went to the first year of the Summer Institute of Linguistics, the Wycliffe's training program. And that was quite an adventure too, driving back there in our little Volkswagen
Oh, it really was. We still have pictures of that.
Yeah, remember how hard it was for you. Remember the
Oh.
first 2 weeks of that time?
It was very hard because Galen was cutting, I think, 8 teeth during that 3 months period.
She was 6 months
And
old when we went there.
She cried all night long.
I know, in that hot dorm. It was terrible.
School was always hard for me anyhow, but boy.
Then remember, you had the flu the first 2 weeks of school.
Yeah.
So, but you made it.
We
You
got
made it
in
too, yeah.
on your good grade.
Well, we really made it. It was wonderful. It was hard, but and then at the end of that summer, we were accepted into Wycliffe, and I didn't think they'd take me, but they did, and we just went back home to Concord and started getting ready to go to the mission field.
Yeah, immediately.
Wow, that was so great.
And it only took us 3 months to get all of our support, when most people it takes 2 years.
I know, that was just an incredible miracle that God did for us.
Yeah.
His goodness was so wonderful during that time. The Lord just brought so many people into our lives.
And we still have people that started on that
That's right.
at that time that
Oh.
have still continued on with
Yeah.
us.
Almost 55 years ago. 54,
Mhm.
53 years ago, yeah. We have a lot.
Yeah, many of them have died.
Yeah, gone to be with the Lord. But
Mhm.
that was really neat. So, we got ready to go to jungle camp in Mexico, down in the jungle. Remember that?
Oh, it was an adventure.
It was. You were brave beyond words. We had little Galen, and you were pregnant when we went there, 3 months,
Mhm.
expecting Joy, and we lived at main base for 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we went out into the middle of jungle with our little Galen.
And Ken built our house
Yep.
with a thatch roof on it and hardly any sides.
Yeah. All we had was a
Yeah.
machete to build the house with.
Yeah. And he built Galen a crib
Uh-huh.
for inside the house and kind of a cage for the outside with
Yeah.
no roof on it.
Yeah, out of bamboo sticks.
For the outside so she could be outside the house.
Yeah, and not run off into the jungle.
Yeah.
'Cause that was the concern, but she was,
Yes.
let's see, she must have been about 14 months then. Yeah, about
Yeah.
14 or 15 months. So she was so good.
Oh, she was so good.
Yeah.
I don't remember her crying
No.
or
Yeah,
anything.
No. The jungle situation was right near this huge river. You remember that?
Yes.
Remember what happened?
Oh yeah, in our swimming classes, everyone had to swim across the river
Uh-huh.
except the pregnant ladies. And I says, oh, I can do that.
You were about 5 months then, at least.
Yeah. And I got out in the middle of the river and I says, I can't go anymore. And I started bobbing up and down. And then to my horror, all these men in the that were in jungle camp at the same time, they all swam out after me, and that was so embarrassing.
You were lying there on your back trying to keep up with your big belly sticking out.
Yeah, they were holding me like this as we came out, and here I was like that.
Talk about embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even there to get a picture of it.
Good.
That's good. Well, while we were there, another really major thing happened in our lives. It was a life-changing thing, and that was when Clarence Church, who was the dear guy that was in charge of jungle camp,
Uh-huh.
remember we thought we might be going to Brazil. We didn't know. But remember what he did one day when he got up and told about?
He told us about the need of a group of Indians in Guatemala
Uh-huh.
that needed the translation. There was many Christians there at the time, and they were praying that a translator would come
Mm-hmm.
translate the Bible into their language.
Yeah.
And
And I remember when we heard about it, we thought, oh, that is the best place in the world. We want to go there. But we didn't know if God wanted us there.
No.
So we decided, we thought everybody's going to want to go to that place.
Mhm.
So we decided, I think it was one whole day we waited, or 2 days. We thought, we'll
Something like
wait,
that.
and if God wants us to go there, he will not lay it on anybody else's heart. And we went and talked to him, and he said, yep, it's open. And so we knew right then that that's where we were going to be for
Yeah.
many years. That was great.
And the reception of the people when we got there was so overwhelming.
Oh, yes. Well, we went back home to California, and then we went back to a second summer at SIL.
Mm-hmm.
We finished that up. We raised our support, and it seemed like in no time we left. I remember we still had $80 a month that we needed for our support. That was a lot then. That was a big hunk of
Yeah.
our income. But we decided we'd go anyway. And the Sunday before we left, we went to San Diego, the Baptist church there, College Avenue. And without knowing our needs, they committed $80 a month to our support.
So we had exactly the right amount.
Yes, that was so special. Yeah, that summer at Norman, Oklahoma, that was really different. I went to the school there in Norman, and you stayed home and had Joy.
Yes, I stayed in San Bernardino with your mother.
Yeah, July 13th she was born,
Yes.
and that was really hard, being away from you and having the baby come and I'm not able to be there.
That was really, really hard.
Yeah, that was one of the harder times
Yeah.
that we experienced, but God got us through it.
Hmm. And Dr. Engel delivered the baby.
That's right, what a dear man.
No, it was Dr. Walter Engel
Yes,
that did. Yeah.
that's right, yeah.
And
And then you flew out there with Galen and Joy,
Joy.
and met you at the airport, and then we lived in that little tiny one-room hut at Norman, Oklahoma for 2 weeks.
Little cabin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a cabin. It was
Yeah.
really hot. And we got in our little Volkswagen and drove back home. And as I said before, we sold the house. First person that came along bought that home.
It was a
And
miracle.
that was really, really wonderful how God provided. Then we took off for Guatemala.
Mhm.
I just often think about how brave you are and were to take those 2 little babies.
It was just
And-
ignorance of what might happen.
Yeah, so when we left for Guatemala, Galen was, I think, 25 months old, 2 years and a month. Little Joy was 6 months old, and we took off and drove all the way to Guatemala and got to Guatemala City right before Christmas. And we celebrated our first Christmas there in the city.
Oh, and you forgot to mention the trailer breaking down.
Oh, my goodness.
And we had to leave the trailer beside the road in Mexico for
Yeah.
how long was it?
Well, overnight. It was out in the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere, and we thought there won't be, well, most of our earthly belongings were in that
In
little
it.
trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to leave it there and drive to a town and wait till the next day, and we thought, Lord, if you don't protect this, there won't be a thing left in that trailer.
No one took anything.
Nope.
It wasn't even touched.
We went back and got it all, and then we had to ship it by rail to Guatemala because we didn't have room for it.
Yeah.
That worked out okay though.
Mm-hmm.
And then in January, a big event in our lives, January 1958, we took that drive, about 12-hour drive, 2 nights, or 1 night on the road, and we drove up to a place called San Miguel Acatan, and then we stayed there at a missionary's house for a few days, a couple of days.
They weren't there, I don't think.
No, they weren't there. And I went with another man. We went up and climbed about 4 hours to San Sebastian over the trail, and to kind of go in and find a place to live and
Mhm.
make sure everything was okay. one thing that was really funny was when Clarence Church and I were walking along. He was the one that took me in, and we were walking along, and this little Indian guy came up, took off his hat, and bowed his head. And Clarence went, "E pluribus unum." And so the guy came over to me, and I went, "E pluribus unum." Well, that happened a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. Finally, I said, "What are we doing?" And he said, "Well, they think we're priests and they want to be blessed, and the only Latin I know is "E pluribus unum." So that was really funny when we did that. That was my first introduction to the culture there. But then came back, and we moved ourselves up there. We went to, it was about 4 hours over steep mountain trails, and everything we owned was either on men's backs or on mules. And the 2 girls, Galen and Joy, were on men's backs, and we hiked into that village. You know, I'll never forget coming over that mountain and looking down and seeing this tiny little village with thatch roof houses, and some of them had kind of wood shingles on adobe, and we thought, you know, that's going to be our home for years. And we got into town. Remember what happened when we got there?
Oh, the Indians were so glad to see us, and they invited us into the little house that we would later live in, or that we would start living in.
Yeah.
And they served us this corn drink. For us, I mean, it wasn't alcoholic, but it was just corn. I don't know what all they put in it.
Yeah.
It was like a slime.
It was really gross.
And I managed to get all mine down after a while, and then they came along and they put more in.
Oh, that was quite an introduction.
I could hardly stomach it. I'm not sure if I drank any of that again.
Ever again, I don't think so. But yeah, and then we, the pastor, had a pastor there. There were 700 believers when we went. And that was really wonderful, and they really wanted the scriptures. And the pastor and his little family with his wife and 3 little children invited us to stay in their little tiny house. And we had one room for us, and then they had a room kind of to the side of it. And we shared that house for 2 years. And remember what happened when with the roof when it would rain, or
oh, we'd have to cover everything up or put buckets underneath the holes, and because we really had gully washers at that.
Well, we're back, and Galen is with us as before, but if we want you to ask questions if you have any, or bring anything up. We were talking about our first home, and when we first went to San Sebastian, Coatan, and be good to share a little more. We lived in that house for 2 years, and we shared it with a family of 5 Indians, but we had a little extra, they put a little extra room on the side, so we had actually 1 room, and we made that into 2 rooms by putting some boards up. And so that was quite a house. What do you remember about that little house?
Well, it had a dirt floor, and it was slanting down. If you dropped something, a ball on the floor or something, it would roll down to the other end.
It did. On the table we had to bury one end of the legs a little bit to make it level.
Yeah. It was a very slick dirt floor that was really pounded down tight.
Yeah, it was.
We could sweep it and
put a little water on it sometimes. Sweep it. It wasn't bad.
No.
But we had no electricity.